Welcome back to Puzzling Minds podcast. Your host, Michael Maddox here, and thank you all for joining me on this wonderful afternoon. Right? Afternoon, yeah, it is a afternoon. And it's been a while since I've done one of these episodes, and I said, you know what? I have time before class, so why not just do a little update and do a little episode for you all. So thank you all for joining me on the Puzzling Minds podcast. And please remember to like, share, follow, and support this page because, guys, this is such an important thing for me, and I hope it becomes such an important thing for you. So let's get into a little update. So lately, I am working nonstop, both with my full-time job as the assistant supplemental department manager at a grocery store, and I'm also going to school to get my national board certification for a holistic health and wellness coach. And I've also been trying to prep for my career and focus on my many well-beings because when it comes to life, I find that we need to have balance and need to kind of just tune in to ourselves and our well beings, as well as committing ourselves to our career and life goals. So, what I've been doing lately is one, working nonstop 40 hours a week and helping people who come into my department and hope to make a difference in their lives, focusing on health and wellness. I've also been, like I said, going to school at Southwest Institute of Healing Arts to get my national board certification to be a holistic health and wellness coach and have that first and then level up from there. So what that means is I guide individuals to elicit self-autonomy to create behavioral changes when it comes to lifestyle and focusing on the different well-beings, on whatever that is for that specific client. I also have a wide variety of expert knowledge within health and wellness when it comes to nutrition, stress management. I also wanting to develop more into my trauma as being my niche. And I have been working nonstop to develop my brand, including different types of one-on-one coaching programs, group workshops, group coaching. So I've been kind of doing all that. And I've also been working on my third book, as you all may remember if you continued to follow this page from the beginning. Let me just grab my books here. I am also a self-published author, and I have been working on this third book for almost 2 years now, which entails trauma, the origin of trauma, and how to heal yourself coming from someone who's experienced trauma in their lives. And that's kind of what this episode is pertaining to. Overall, I'm very proud of this project. It's come a long way. I wanted to also develop my fourth book right after it. But for me, someone who does write and someone who takes time in their work and someone who's very particular and likes to be perfect, loose, quit it. My dog likes to be part of the show, and you might see a so if you do hear that, I apologize. She just wants to be the star, but this is my show, not hers. But like I said, I am also developing my fourth book in my mind so far and on my vibrant murder scene wall, which I have a video that I created way back when that kind of discusses where I've gone within this book, my third book, Trauma's Web. And I am also wanting to develop a nutrition book and kind of like a guidebook in a way of like a program in a sense. I also, if you check out my work, I do have a poetry book and a memoir. I'm not in my poetry type of mindset currently. Like I said, I'm trying to rebrand and kind of have a foundation. where I have all the pieces together. So by the time I get my national board certification and I could start outreaching and networking, which I have been doing here and there, soon to be someone who is a national board certification holistic health and wellness coach, someone who I'm wanting to get my RDN, my registered dietitian nutritionist, so I'm able to really prescribe in a sense, rather than being like, okay, well, I have expertise, knowledge in this, maybe check out this while connecting with your primary care provider or types of doctors. What else? I've also been working out. So I had a period of moments where I was reflecting a lot, and that reflection kind of helped supported me to kind of find where I am in life. Being 22, I like to get ahead and really nail in my goals. And I probably spent a half a year of just inner reflection, inner mindfulness, especially with school. I've learned so much, even though I have the prior knowledge, prior to attending this institution. I'm also able to kind of be able to balance in a sense of connections and how things interweave one another. Yeah, and therefore, since that reflection, I've also been working on my physical well-being, since that was one of my goals for this year, was to kind of get healthier in a sense of making time to work out, making time to stretch, because I have noticed that whenever I don't do this, I kind of feel like lethargic. I'm really wanting to just make this my routine every day, but life happens, and that's okay as long as you realize, hey, life is throwing me a curveball. How can we handle this and be able to balance and manage other well-beings that support our overall health? Oh, there she is. There's Luz. Yeah, so let's get right into this episode. I have this episode in my mind for a while now, and I'm kind of tiptoeing around the title. Maybe I'll just title it how the title is so far. But I would love to read a portion of my book to you all and kind of work through it so that you guys can have a better understanding of where we've come as a society, as a culture, especially when it comes down to Western lifestyle, medicine, and trying to go from where we were back then to where we are now. All right, so let's get into it. So this portion of my book, I call it Generations Game of Telephone. And I called my brother while I was working on this piece. And I was like, I like to be very creative within my writing, and I like to have a little imagery. But when it comes down to how we developed in life, focusing on different generations, on how they were handed these resources due to these types of life events, we were only given, I don't know, let's just say a disadvantage. The government, I don't want to get political, but it's kind of like that, you know? We, as a society, coming from low class, middle class, we don't really have a say in how we want to function in life. And I wish we were able to kind of have our input in a sense of how we want to go about life's health, I guess. That's not the right way to put it, but you know what I mean. All right, so let's get right into it. Perhaps you remember a game called Telephone, which you may have played when you were a kid. This game was held with a group of people sitting around in a circle. The game started out with the first person choosing a word or a phrase. They would whisper it to the next, and so on until they got to the last person. Halfway through, that original word may have been altered in a way it may sound similar from the original or completely different. The objective of the game is whether or not you can listen carefully to make sure the original word stays true. On the other hand, some may have the intention to purposely alter the original word or phrase to have the satisfaction to change the final outcome. Wow, that was a lot, and I know that was a lot, and you're like, where are you going with this? Well, let me tell you. So, when it comes down to going back to the silent generation back in the 1920s and 1930s, dealing with the Roaring '20s and going into the Great Depression, that's kind of where all this science and ideologies came about when it comes down to psychological health. And at that time, a lot of individuals, especially when it came down to government or of higher power, they thought that they were insane, that these things were happening in one's mind and one's experience, and how when we digest the experience themselves, that kind of outbursts this negative energy, either negative or positive, but due to life's experiences dealing with this lavish decade of just expense and abundance into falling apart from the Great Depression, and then we get into the wars and control, and we didn't have control with our lives. We were thrown this unpredictable curveball in a sense of, well, now we're fucked. And due to that, we were handed these resources that gave us a disadvantage when it comes down to our overall health. So think of this analogy as to what generational trauma is exactly. You may be asking, how so? Let me explain. The first person, let's call them the silent generation. This generation was between the years 1928 to 1945, well known as the traditional generation due to their ways of living. The title was given its name due to being as bland and altered with their surroundings. As you may have seen, this generation was during the times of the Great Depression and World War II. Society at the time went from living a lavish, outgoing life full of abundance to hanging on a thread. One of my resources, Flores Davis, states silent generation are disciplined, hard-working, respectful, resilient, and cautious with their money. And we were conformists. What I find interesting about this blog post, the word conformist. To conform is to alter yourself to meet a higher standard, and in this case, society at the time was conforming themselves as to what was expected by them. As a result of this becoming the norm, topics about mental health too became a silent generation in itself. It was deemed unacceptable to discuss this complex topic as fear lurked, holding a straitjacket and a ticket to a multitude of experiments for the next few decades. Oakes Integrated Care identifies this to be the case. Stiff upper lips and stoic attitudes were the norm. Seeking help for mental health challenges was a sign of weakness. Many of this generation still carry these beliefs, making it challenging to openly discuss mental health issues. In the book, The Silent Generation, 1925 to 1945 by Bob and Jen Henger, discusses social and economic issues this generation faced firsthand. This resulted in a reconfiguration of every individual's DNA due to the abundance of trauma being experienced, starting the ideology of intergenerational trauma. Therefore, side note, because I'm going to keep going back and forth, but I hope you all could catch on. But to break this statement down, when we experience trauma or experience this stress, there are many research articles out there that talk about DNA methylation and gene DNA methylation. So what DNA methylation is, and I'll definitely go more into it, is when we experience trauma or a form of stress issue. That kind of puts this little piece on our DNA, and that little piece kind of keeps within ourselves unless if we are able to break it apart when it comes down to reflection, when it comes down to self-exploration and breaking that generational trauma. However, for those who were born in a mindset of not being able to discuss your trauma or your emotions and or being able to work through your stress, that kind of gets handed down to our children and their children and so on. So there are many articles out there that discusses when it comes down to Auschwitz and gas chambers, how, let's say, dealing with World War II and Hitler and all these different types of torture, that's being placed on our genes. And then as we have a child, and let's say you survived and have a child, that gets passed on to them. And then whatever you were able to have this behavioral change or this behavioral idea when it comes down to how one goes about life, let's say you weren't able to work through it, and then you have this behavioral mindset of, it's right there on the tip of my tongue. Gosh, it's right there. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but respondents, we'll just say that, respondents to another type of event that was maybe similar, then you weren't able to work through it, then that child will also not be able to work through that type of event. Which I'll do a whole other episode dealing with that. All right, let's continue. Throughout the coming generations, this was soon to become a cultural phenomenon conforming to being silent. The World Health Organization, WHO, makes it aware that adolescence is a crucial period for developing social and emotional habits important for mental well-being. Protective and supportive environments in the family, at school, and in wider communities are important. During this time of a child's life, they are the most vulnerable, as stated above. This happens to be showcased with their authorities like parental figures and others that classify higher in society. A child's perspective of self can change as quickly as taking a breath. One negative cause can have a long-lasting effect which can leak into adulthood. After the wars, once families were able to start settling, birth rates increased, which created a new generation, baby boomers, 1946 to 1964. The social and cultural landscape of baby boomers was drastically changing, witnessing events like Vietnam and Korean War, as well as many civil rights movements. Growing up in these experiences, the boomers were characterized as one who values relationships, goal-centric, self-assured, and resourceful. This generation was much more open-minded than their parents. Notably, the positive change in the education system may have been a factor on why this generation were fighters. Many boomers are influenced by the idea that mental health issues can be resolved through personal growth and self-help. While some embrace therapy and self-exploration, others remain skeptical of psychiatric medications. Think of life as a one-way street. This one-way road remains steady unless there is some external effect. This external impact causes a turnoff, which leads back to a different one-way route. This road may run smoothly, or it may contain potholes and slopes. This one-way road is your life, and various things impact the decisions you make. Culture is one of these factors that impacts your road. So, as a child dealing with child development, which I also want to get into as part of my brand, just because I know how crucial and fragile child development is. You are in, let's say you're a child, right? And you are within this type of community or within this household, and you have this fixed mindset of being this particular person due to how you were raised from the prior generation, and having these mindset of not being able to talk about your emotions, being silent. And then, let's say you grow up, you figure this out for yourself, you have this moment of reflection and self-exploration, you're able to kind of take a turn of, you know what, this is not right. This is inhumane. This is something and someone I don't want to be when I get older into adulthood. And then you, let's say, move out, and then you go to this whole new environment with a whole new mindset of culture. And then you see, wow, this is so much better. This is a bigger picture. This gives me different opportunities to be who I want to be. And it's all down to environment. And then when you adopt this value for yourself, you make decisions based off of that. All right, let's get back into it. Generation X, 1965 to 1980, marked a turning point in that road in the adoption of societal beliefs. Another name for this generation is being a latchkey kid. Those born in this generation were recognized for achieving independence at a young age as their parents pursued the American dream. The children walked around with keys around their neck, they say. Analyzing this, the theory of attachment plays in this generation, potentially influencing psychological outcomes for future generations. As independence becomes the main characteristic of this generation, based on the theory of attachment, they would most likely become avoidant. Additionally, they also developed the mindset of tough it out. This worldview had a negative impact on the future of Generation Z. Still, mental health came to a standstill since society remained unsure about it. So people during this time were dealing with the civil rights movements and were wanting to have this brighter future for themselves and for their offspring. However, based off of where you are in life as an environment, you may be in one part of the world and they have this mindset, beliefs, values, and then you have someone else in this other side of the world with different mindset, beliefs, and values. They then either go down negatively or positively. Therefore, that's why when it comes down to development of children and self, it's important to just remember that we're all human. We're all here. We all came here with who knows how, because we all have this different idea of how we were brought here, and we may never know the right answer, but that's why I'm saying that we have this different ideology all throughout the world, and that's okay. Don't invalidate someone else's ideology, but being able to express it and share it and bounce off these ideas and thoughts. But when it comes down to health and wellness, like I said, and I'll get into it, we were given resources, and now we are screwed because where I am in, like the Western Hemisphere, dealing with Western lifestyle and big pharma, comparing it from there to other types of countries and how they go about healing one's body, mind, and soul, I'm able to make this connection of we are dealing with this high epidemic of chronic diseases. How the hell are other people surviving and being healthier than us? So yeah, I'll get into that as well. I'm going to butcher this last name. Jean Twenge states in their interview, millennials be more focused on themselves and less focused on things outside of themselves. With the invention of computers, it was only a matter of time before social media followed. Nonetheless, millennials remained outwardly independent and easygoing. So this upcoming generation would soon to be a new century. This meant a significant transition in both social and cultural dimensions as well as technology. They remain carrying the same core values as the prior generation, only difference being the invention of the first computer. The end of the 20th century marks the beginning of the 21st, and with it, the new introduction of the generation known as Gen Z, who lived from 1997 to 2009. This generation saw the start of a new century, which brought with a completely different set of competing ideologies. They developed an early facility with powerful digital tools that allowed them to be self-reliant as well as collaborative, introducing new platforms like social media. Social media's versatility and adaptability allowed people to travel the world without physically leaving their surroundings. Thus, society had adapted to internal self-shadowing as opposed to its previous culture of outward expression. This eventually led to a rise in the absence of communication, which is critical for the development of general well-being, particularly in the formative years of a child. Speaking indirectly creates a barrier to clear communication, major part of growing up, and friendship requires a certain amount of risk-taking. It takes courage to be honest about your feelings and then hear what other people have to say. Crucially, candid face-to-face interactions foster a general sense of empathy for one another. Beginning in adolescence, that is the significant in and of itself. If not, one might experience psychological changes. Adolescence is a crucial time for growth. It's acceptable for some people to be ahead of others. As we go, we pick up knowledge from the people that we look up to, our parents, instructors, mentors, and other adults. Referring back to the theory of trauma, using my analogy of the game of telephone, these elements are crucial to being the telephone. When it comes down to child development, childhood trauma tends to be a topic that remains largely undiscussed in many societies. One often finds themselves pondering the question, why does one obtain trauma in the first place? And that, people, I will get into in another episode, so I hope you stay and watch. However, I would like to expand on when it comes down to how we were given these resources based off of the times. So I'll just give you this little summary. So during the wars, we were scarce with these resources like food, like nutrition. And during those times, they were trying to figure out how we survive with being nutritionally and improving age at that time. However, given the resources from the events like war, let me break it down to you. So, let's say war's going on, right? And now they are scarce with food because of the Great Depression. Maybe people can't afford it at that time. And they were trying to find the longevity of food. So someone that's in the United States, like me, were given these processed foods, these refined foods, which is not okay when it comes down to developing chronic diseases. So not only are we stressed because life at that time was very unpredictable, let's just say. And during this moment, we as a society were given these processed foods because they were also doing testing at the time to determine how much of what we should be getting. So now, with the adoption of processed foods of America, and as well as the production of big pharma, after the fact that now they are catching on that we are not only surviving longer than what we used to, we are now developing chronic diseases because when they sent out processed foods, they basically strip all those nutrients, all those whole nutrients, to now inject chemicals to make them live longer on the shelf, to save money, to also waste money, because now they put this label of due dates, now they put this label of expiration dates so that you can just throw product away. Yes, and not all product needs to be thrown away. You just need to know how to be mindful with your eating, first off. Also being aware of how long food actually stays about. And if you go to, let's say, someone local, like a farm or anything, you are now valuing yourself when it comes down to getting your full nutrients. And a lot of people within the last decade, being one of myself, has adopted this lifestyle of plant-based. And I must say that eating something like plants and eating something like organic foods, whole nutrient foods that aren't refined, that aren't processed, I feel much better about myself, and I have this energy of going through my day. So basically the government had this power and control because they think that they should know best about our lives, which I wish that they didn't strip this land, and now they're building all these businesses, these apartments, these homes, and taking away these farmland to be able to grow naturally and healthily. I've discovered that within my studies and focusing on my own experiences and other people's experiences, when you obtain processed foods, you're now developing chronic diseases like type 2 diabetes due to red meats that you shouldn't be eating in the first place, you know? And you are also not getting all your nutrients. You're getting all these fake nutrients that really don't do anything except get you through what you need to get through. And because they are witnessing these epidemic of chronic diseases, now here comes Big Pharma with all these medications to help one person, help an individual that deals with anti-inflammatory, inflammatory issues, anti-inflammatory issues, but oh my gosh, I had it. Inflammation and dealing with type 2 diabetes, obesity, cardiovascular disease, neurological diseases, because now we don't know how to go about focusing on ourselves and our well-beings. We are being told to you know what, eat this to make yourself feel better, take this to make yourself feel better, but that is just temporary. Why not have this as a lifestyle of just eating something that's soul food, seasonal, organic, unprocessed, and local? Um, like I was saying, Big Pharma comes in, they put you on all these 20 different types of medications with these different types of, oh gosh, I'm like missing these words, reactions. And now, if you get off, you have these withdrawals, and then your body kind of just fluctuates, and they kind of just screw us over. They fuck us in the ass. Yeah. So, when you go to the grocery store, always remember a few things. Work around the perimeter. Getting vegetables, because they have also done studies that obtaining 30 different types of vegetables or fruits in a given week helps support your microbiome. However, when it comes down to, let's say, getting something within the center of a grocery store, or getting something that's processed and refined, like different types of carbs, like sugar. Sugar is like this whole drug that kind of screws our body and creates these different types of issues. We want to feed our gut health, because gut is your second brain, because when we develop stress and witness stress and trauma and things like how to go about these different situations, our gut produces these hormones that shoot up to our brain, and then we are basically able to work around it. So yeah, indulging 30 different types of vegetables and or fruits. I always say go like 10 to 1 when it comes down to vegetables and fruits, just because yes, fruits are high in antioxidants, basically decreasing the free radicals, throwing out these damaged cells within one's body that gets produced due to something that's refined, not being able to work through your stress, that maybe you are in an environment that gives you all these damaging cells. So yes, there are fruits that are, yes, high in sugar, a good healthy natural sugar, so keep it to a minimum, because when it comes down to trying to get rid of, let's say, obesity, cardiovascular disease, circulatory issues, it's nice to have vegetables, something that's leafy, packed full of minerals, nutrients, vitamins, antioxidants. So I always say 10 to 1 with the ratio. It's also good to have a diversity, because, like I said, there are different types of things like that. They have done research that you now have this well-rounded microbiome, like your gut, because all these vegetables are filled with fiber to help feed your good bacteria. You are now able to have that bacteria in your body, which I'll also do another episode about to work through it. But your bacteria help support production of these nutrients. They utilize these nutrients to produce these different responses within your body, and that's how you are able to go about your day. So in conclusion, I say do your research. I say really put yourself first when it comes down to health and wellness. Really take care of your body as much as you can, because as we continue to age, and if we don't put in the work of eating healthy, managing stress, taking ourselves out of environments that may be toxic, also surrounding ourselves with positivity, not negativity, and you're basically investing in yourself. What other type of investments that give you these great benefits? Because now, if you take care of yourself, you're able to age nicely. you're able to feel really good, your body, both physically and mentally. Take time to self-reflect, take time to break these norms and unhealthy cultures, toxic cultures, and toxic beliefs that may be distilled in you, and really put yourself first. Because it is really important, because at the end of the day, it's your body. Yes, it's your choice and you can do whatever you want, but don't you want to have this lavish life of longevity and be able to live as long as you can? Because would you rather spend $100 or so on being nutritious, getting supplements, taking your vitamins? And yes, supplements is just supplementing something that you aren't able to produce all the way, and that just helps you. And I take supplements just because I want to make sure I'm getting, what I need. But I like to make sure that I am getting it naturally and organically, and being able to get it as a whole rather than a half. I just kind of like covering all the basics. Would you rather put that investment in something like yourself, like food, or would you, and feel really good physically and mentally, have this energy that you may not have seen at all, and taking the time to eat nutritiously, handle stress, put in the physical exercise, because that also, and sleep, because that also helps with not developing radical and damaging your cells. Or would you rather invest in something like Big Pharma, like putting tens and $100,000 to give yourself this temporary medication that screws you over and screws you in the ass at the end of the day? I sure don't. I want to aspire to be someone who just feels healthy, looks healthy, and someone who is able to go about the world with this open mindset and this growth mindset of oneself, and seeing where the foot lies, But thank you all for joining me on this episode of this podcast. I'm not too sure what I want to do on the next one. Maybe I'll talk about the microbiome. And yeah, stay tuned, like, share, follow, support this page. And I don't know, I'm also, another update, I'm transferring to a whole new different store, which I'm excited about and optimistic about. Hopefully to have more of a work-life balance, so I'm able to have my brand being more developed and having my own practice and being able to coach more one-on-one and having time for that, especially on the weekends. And I just got my schedule for the new location, and I'm very excited, very thrilled. And I'm trying to now put in the work of, I got this. And put in the idea of, I got this, because we all got this at the end of the day. And if you put in the work and have this passion in life for whatever you want to do, for me, it is being able to make a difference in someone else's lives. That means a lot to me, especially if it's not all at once, but having this domino effect of giving someone hope and giving someone this power back to them, and having this empathy and connection with someone else is phenomenal. I have witnessed many people that I call my regulars, my clients that come into my work, and being able to just have them break down in front of me. Yes, it's sad, and that's, it hurts, because they feel so alone in this journey of just trying to be healthy, and being able to share my expertise and knowledge when it comes down to health and wellness. And I'm able to make that change, and then they take the knowledge and incorporate it in their lives and share it with others. So that's what I want to do. I don't care if it's If I don't get the abundance right away, I know I will if I put in the work. You know? All right, y'all. Thank you so much for joining me on this podcast of Puzzling Minds. And stay tuned for the next episode. Like, share, and follow and support this page. And check out my website, lotuslounge.org, to see the services that I provide. And go on my social media, like my Instagram. I do a lot of posts. I'm going to do postings. I will do postings that in regards to group workshops and group coaching, because I, starting on the 30th of September, start my new location, and then I have the 2 following weekends off, so I may put in time to do a workshop or 2 and some group coachings or 2. So stay tuned and support this page. Thank you all. Bye.